Um, you need to come off mute, Sam. Oh, yes, you are. Yes. So welcome, Sam.
Thanks very much. I have to apologise a little bit in advance. Number one, because as you can see, I'm in my London office, so my only microphone is this. I don't have my really shiny, beautiful microphone that I usually have. And you might also be able to hear the booming voice of my business partner still on the phone to clients at whatever time it is.
Right.
So apologies for that, but hopefully I'll be able to make up for that by
so Sam, I don't know about everybody else, but I'm having quite a lot of difficulty hearing you actually. I heard what you said about there's other people in the office.
How is that?
Yeah, so I'm getting messages from people saying there is background noise. Yeah, I think it's quite a bit.
Okay, give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to bring up my slides and then I'll tell him to bugger off.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So just for everyone's information, Sam has been providing us with updates since, well, I think it must have been April this year. So Sam's been providing really good updates on the lending market because it's been quite volatile.
It has indeed. Hopefully, I have just told my business partner to be quiet. So,
yeah, good.
So hopefully that he's gonna type down and smiling at me. It's funny actually because usually I'm just sitting in my room alone. But having him in the office, I almost feel a bit nervous doing this about him. He's going to be looking at me and making sure that I get all the stats correct. But just how's that? Can you hear anything in the background anymore?
I could, to be perfectly honest. Someone said, I think there's some background noise, volume is low. I think Sam's headphones might not be plugged in. Are your headphones actually plugged in?
They are plugged in indeed. Yeah, it's just, it might just be a bit quiet. I'm going to try and talk into my mouthpiece. Is that any better?
Yeah. Let's give it a go, Sam. And
okay.
Let's see how you. Let's give it a go.
Let's see how we go. Apologies in advance.
That does sound better. Thank you.
That sounds better. I'm going to literally just hold it to my mouth. So, guys, yeah, thanks ever so much for the kind introduction, Chris. As Chris said, my name's Sam Norris. I am the owner director at Grand Union Finance. And up on the screen at the moment, you'll find all the best ways in which you can get in touch with me. Obviously, the number and email is there, and I'm pretty much scattered across social media as well. So, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are 3 ways of following me, and I do try and share as much useful information as I can on a regular basis. So feel free to use any of those means to get in touch if you've got any questions outside of today's presentation. But to kick things off, just with a very, very brief agenda, for those of you that have seen this before, you'll be very familiar with the first couple. Kicking off with some mortgage news, then looking at some bridging and development finance news, and then I'm actually going to do something slightly different to what I normally do. And I'm going to take you through a case study, which I thought was really, really interesting, and talk you through sort of what the numbers on this one, because I think there's a lot of people looking at commercial, semi-commercial stuff at the moment, and so this one should be quite interesting. Obviously, at the end, if we've got time, obviously this is dependent on if Chris wants to move on to what I'm happy to answer some questions as well. So, kicking things off. From a mortgage perspective, I would like to, although I know a lot of you are going to be investors and developers and are going to be much more interested in that sector, I think it's always interesting to give a quick rundown as to what's going on in the residential market. Because what goes on in the residential market sometimes has an impact on the sort of more specialist side. And certainly what we're seeing, which is quite strange, is pretty much across the board, increases in residential rates. Barclays, TSB, Nationwide, a lot of the big high street lenders are upping their rates. There's been no movement from the Bank of England, yet the lenders are upping their rates. And actually, strangely enough, one of the reasons is because the demand is so high. We have such a buoyant market at the moment that residential lenders just can't keep up with the number of applications that they're getting at the moment. And one of the best ways to dissuade people from applying is to increase their rates, which as I said, some of the big high street lenders are doing at the moment. Another way is to decrease your loan to values. Barclays this week even pulled 75% loan to value product. These are residential mortgages, guys. These aren't buy to let. These are residential mortgages. So it just goes to show that the mainstream market is absolutely inundated at the moment, which is good news for a buoyant market, but it does mean that lenders are under a lot of pressure to try and maintain service levels, which we are finding they're not quite doing at the moment. Some lenders we're finding are taking 5 to 10 working days just to look at a new application. So don't expect new mortgages to be done quickly at the moment. Stick with the lenders. They're doing a great job.
Sorry, Sam. Can you just pause a second, because I am a little bit concerned about the voice quality.
Okay.
Can somebody else just please just come on and just tell me what they're experiencing, because it just might be me, but I'm having a little bit of difficulty, and I don't want to, I don't want you to be talking and we can't hear you.
I can't hear Sam. It does sound like his headphones aren't working and it's coming from his laptop. But yeah, I don't know if it's.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to take my headphones out, and I'm just going to have to tell Engine to be very, very quiet.
And if Sam speaks slightly slower, then we should be able to pick up all the words, hopefully.
Can you hear me now? Better.
Yes.
I think that is better, Sam.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm literally taking headphones out. I'm going tech free.
No, sorry, that is an improvement, Sam. Okay. So thank you.
Fine.
Did you just want to summarise the key points of what you were just saying about the loan to values and rates?
Yeah. So firstly, apologies for that, guys. Yeah. So the what I was saying is that in the residential market, there's such high demand at the moment that the mainstream lenders are inundated. Their service levels are as bad as they've been in years. And what I mean by that is the time it's taking applications just to be seen by underwriters for the first time is sometimes a lag time of 5 to 10 working days. In fact, we had one lender recently that quoted us potentially 21 days. So we didn't use them for obvious reasons. And what lenders are doing in the residential space to combat this is to increase their rates and to pull and reduce certain products and to reduce loan to values. And as I said there, Barclays have actually taken away their 75% loan to value residential mortgage product. So it is a big issue. So yeah, a bit of a strange one. However, at the moment, where the residential lenders are kind of pulling back, the buy-to-let market seems to be sort of trying to take full advantage of the fact that the market is so buoyant. I would imagine that when you compare buy-to-let or HMO, service accommodation, anything sort of on an investment mortgage basis, you compare the transaction numbers to residential, there's obviously going to be quite a big difference. But even so, because the market is buoyant, these lenders are actually looking to take advantage. So where the residential market is falling down, the specialist buy-to-let market are picking up the difference. And we're seeing widespread reductions in rates at the moment, particularly from Reliant, Precise, Land Bay, these sorts of lenders. They are reducing their interest rates at the moment because they're trying to just grab as much market share as they can whilst they can. They're making hay while the sun shines, so to speak. So, and another one as well is that I talked about Vida last month. LendInvest have joined the plus 75% club and have actually brought out an 80% loan to value limited company buy-to-let mortgage as well. Now, I was actually a bit disturbed recently. I was looking at a lot of sort of market sort of stuff online, and lots of brokers were actually talking about how they were really happy to see that lenders were supporting landlords by bringing in new higher loan to value products. And if anyone knows me, they know I really don't enjoy higher leveraged properties on a buy-to-let basis. So I tend to disagree with what they're saying there. I think the lenders are just trying to grab market share in any way they can at the moment, and that's one way in which they're doing it. But look, if you need it, it's there, which is positive. Things are getting so bad for some of the really specialist lenders that they're even introducing waiting lists. Octane Capital, those of you who might be more familiar with them on a bridging or development basis, with their buy-to-let products, they now have a waiting list. So if you apply, you don't even necessarily know that you're definitely going to get your application through at the moment. I've never seen that before, which I think is actually quite funny, to be honest with you. Now, the reason why these lenders are sort of suggesting that this is the case is obviously we've got the stamp duty holiday that's been brought in till March, and the extension of the furlough scheme. This is probably creating a bit of a false bubble, if you like. And when these things finish, you know, who knows what's gonna happen to the market. Somebody even said to me recently that they wouldn't be surprised if the stamp duty holiday was actually extended, albeit maybe at a lower level, to continue to stimulate transaction numbers, because they think that there'll be a massive drop in transaction numbers, you know, pretty much overnight when we hit March. So remains to be seen what's going to happen there. Now, I did think I mentioned last month, I think, that we were going to try and do a bit of research on bounce back loans across the market. And myself and our operations manager, Ruby, have been ringing around a lot of lenders, both on the more traditional side, the mortgage side, and on the bridging side as well, just to see what their thoughts were. Now, when it comes to mortgages, we did not come across one mortgage lender that would entertain bounce back loans for anything to do with the purchase of a property. And as I say in there, some were actually getting a bit angry. They've obviously been hearing this question a lot. And you can imagine on the other end of the phone, these people rolling their eyes thinking, God, not again. So I think the message is pretty clear when it comes to mortgages. Bounce back loans, nada, not happening. So if you do need to use your bounce back loans towards a property purchase, you're not going to be able to make up the difference with a mortgage, I'm afraid. But we'll finish that research off on the next slide, which is all about bridging and development news. So the good news on the bridging side is that rates continue to tumble, basically. Very much like the specialist mortgage market, there's a lot of demand at the moment across the board. We're hearing, you know, consistently now, week on week, the transaction numbers are the highest they've ever been, and property prices continue to rise. Bridging lenders are taking advantage of this as well. Competition is back, and rates are tumbling as a result. We've even seen that Precise have actually reintroduced their 0.49% bridging product up to 65% loan to value, which we've not seen for quite some time. I will sort of put a caveat on doing bridging with Precise. You've got to fit into a very, very particularly square peg to get through with somebody like Precise. They're not the most flexible lender in the world, but the pricing just highlights the appetite in the bridging market at the moment to get funds out the door. So it's really, really important to understand that competition is forcing that down, which is definitely a helpful thing. Now, something that's been quite interesting that's come about in the last month as well. Aspen have actually introduced what we call a stepped rate product. Now, this is going to be pretty helpful for those of you that follow the kind of the buy, refurbish, refinance strategy, because what they do is they have quite a low rate for the first 6 months at 0.459, but this goes up dramatically to 1.24% for the remainder of the term. But this goes up all the way up to 75%. So net, you're probably looking about 70%. You're probably looking at about 30% deposit for this. But if you are doing a relatively swift turnaround, and we can get mortgages refinance pre 6 months ownership, if you think that you can get this done, then this could be a really, really helpful product for you, because you're not going to have to worry about that 0.24%. And even if you go in by, you know, half a month to a month, when you blend that together, you're still getting better than probably what else is available on the market. So something like this is really, ingenuity. I can't think of the word. Ingenious. Thank you.
Ingenious, yeah.
Yes, ingenious. Because it's actually helping, or there's a certain gap in the market for something like this. Together used to do it quite a while ago, but Aspen have jumped on the bandwagon. I think this product is actually really helpful. But of course, there's always that caveat: don't go over that 6 months, otherwise you're really going to get hit. but we can get mortgages pre-6 months, and we always want to arrange that kind of thing in advance. Now, part 2 on the bounce back loan research. Surprisingly, we've been met with a lot of positive feedback from bridging lenders that actually they're quite happy if you use your bounce back loans as either part or all of your deposit. We really weren't expecting this. The initial reaction when bounce back loans came out from bridging lenders was pretty similar to mortgage lenders. So the fact that pretty much across the board they're saying that they're quite comfortable with it is a good thing. Now, you're going to need a story. You're going to need to go through exactly what you've taken, how you've taken it. We're still going to have to show origin of funds, source of funds, and they're probably going to be a bit more stringent on it if it's coming from a bounce back loan. They're going to want to see exactly which account it's come into, which company has taken it out. If it's been, if there's an intercompany loan or something like that, we need to really go the extra mile for due diligence on that. There was only a handful that did say no, and there were some lenders as well that said, although they're quite comfortable with the vast majority being used as a deposit, they still want to see that you've got some personal savings in terms of skin in the game yourself. So something like 10% of the purchase price would need to be put down from your own funds. But this was only from a handful of lenders that we spoke to. Now, look, there's hundreds of bridging lenders. We didn't speak to all of them. We spoke to pockets that represented the market. In total, I think we spoke to about 15 or so. And like I said, the feedback was really, really positive. So if you have taken a bounce back loan, it's not all doom and gloom, but you have to be really, really careful. And there might be some solicitors out there that still might have a problem with it, because ultimately they have a say as well. So be cautious, but there's room to be positive here. So to sort of finish up with, I wanted to, as I said, do something a little bit different and just go through a case study that we've been working on, which was for a semi-commercial property in the West Midlands. There we go. It's almost like I wrote this myself, isn't it? So this particular client, they were an experienced developer, to give them credit. So what we're going to go through is not necessarily going to be exactly how we could price it if we didn't have the experience. But what they bought was your pretty standard retail unit on the ground floor, 2 separate residential dwellings above, both 2 bedrooms. Now, I just want to, as a precursor for this, when we spoke to the client, they did ask that we change some of the figures ever so slightly, just in case any of you recognise the deal, and they just didn't want everything to be advertised. So I hope you forgive me for that. Obviously, we want to respect the client's privacy. So a quick overview of what it was. So the client was looking to redevelop the property essentially. Through permitted development, they're actually able to split the retail units on the ground floor in 2. And for those of you that are up on your PD and planning and stuff like that, you'll know that once you've actually done that, you can actually then get another lot of permitted development to get 2 residential dwellings above. So the idea of this was that they were going to split the retail unit on the ground floor, bearing in mind what the market's like at the moment. Larger retail units are largely going, there's huge voids happening there. Smaller retail units are doing a lot better. So they sort of obviously foresaw this and went about splitting this up. They were subsequently allowed to get PD passed in order for them to create 2 one-bedroom apartments above each of those retail units. Now, the purchase price was 500,000, and the cost of the work to do the conversion was 110. So what we were able to do on this was, because there was no real massive structural changes to the property, we actually managed to get this on a refurbishment bridge, which was priced at 0.95 a month at 75%. We were originally looking at development finance for this, but actually it worked out better. The client did have some cash, and so it worked out better for them to cover the cost of the work themselves, because the cost of funds was less, and we were able to get hold of this product as a result. We tend to do this quite a lot, really. Clients tell us that we're sort of shooting ourselves in the foot, where we're kind of getting our clients to borrow less. If anyone knows anything about how brokers are paid, we are paid based on how much you borrow. So if we're telling clients to borrow less, we actually get paid less as a result, but we're trying to do right by our clients. So getting access to this this type of funding was going to make the project look a lot more tasty. So, and here's a quick breakdown of what the figures look like. So, as I said, purchase price 500, gross loan 75, which was 375,000. There was a lender fee of 2%. We deducted our broker fee of 1% off of it as well. As I said, interest rate of 0.95, which was 3,562.50 per month in interest, and the term was 9 months. They actually completed the work in 5 months, which I thought was really impressive, actually, given that part of it was during COVID as well. And I know they had some issues with getting some plaster for a large proportion of it, which really held them up. So getting it done in such a short space of time was fantastic. So 9 months of interest deducted, which essentially gave us a net loan of 331,688, which means they needed to put down 168,313 as a deposit. Now, in terms of the other fees there, we basically got just over 18 grams worth of fees as well that they needed to put in. So, and obviously the cost of the work, which was 110, which they covered themselves. So here's how we ended up on this one. When it was complete, 2 ground floor flat rental units were valued at 50 grand each. Not too much, really, to be honest with you. But it was really in the residential that we made our cash. The first floor were both valued. The 1 bedroom flats were both valued at 560, and the 1 bedroom flats on the top floor valued at 570 each. So we had a total GDV of 1.14 million on this particular property. We actually only refinanced at 60% on a semi-commercial mortgage. The client was thinking about splitting all the leases and titles and everything like that, but to be honest with you, he already had both the retail units agreed on pre-lease agreements, so he was keen to get them let out ASAP and start refinancing. He actually also had a really similar project to this, 2 roads down, can you believe, ready to go. So we just wanted to pull cash out as quickly as possible. So we ended up going for a semi-commercial mortgage with the same lender that did the bridging at 5.49%. You know, that rate's not going to win any awards, but it was more than sufficient. And this gave us a net income for the property of just shy of 21 grand a year. Not going to change anyone's life, but here's where it gets really, really interesting. When you look at these figures, and I'll just move my camera slightly. As I said, GDV 1.14, 60% mortgage at 684,000. Now his costs were 110 for refurb, of course, a deposit, the stamp duty, and then what else needed to be repaid, which was the gross bridge loan of 375. There was that refurb deposit, stamp duty. So the whole amount that needed to be repaid was 668,313. Now the mortgage that we pulled out was 684. So the client didn't just get all their money back, but they actually ended up getting nearly 16 grand on top of that. So as a deal, this was as good as it gets, really, in terms of this type of conversion. And do you know what? The one that we're going through at the moment, which is the second one, is actually ever so slightly better. We worked out, if everything goes to plan, that he's going to pull his money back out plus 26 grand. And we're pretty much going to use exactly the same product. So the reason why I'm showing you this is because I wanted to sort of demonstrate that there are deals like this out there. And although you might think that 5.49% on a commercial mortgage or 0.95% plus, 2% worth of fees for a bridge sounds expensive, in reality, it isn't that expensive. He's managed to pull out all his cash, and he's now got, some people will call it infinite return on investment. I don't really like that terminology, but he's basically got himself 21 grand's worth of net income coming in on this a year, and he's managed to recycle all of his cash and then some. So for me, this was a cracking deal. This client really is one of my favorite clients at the moment. So hopefully that was helpful. Any questions at all? I know I probably rambled on quite a lot, Chris, so happy if you don't want to give me too much time for questions, but I'm open for as many questions as you'll allow.
That was great, Sam. I've got some of my own questions, but I'll keep my powder dry. I'll open it up to the call. If anyone's got any questions, then please just come off mute.
I've got one, Chris.
Oh, okay, yeah, go for it, Andy.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for
Hi,
that.
Andy.
Just, I guess, in terms of the borrowing, I guess I'm trying to bend this to one of my own case studies, but in terms of affordability of that borrowing, does that, because it's a commercial lending, is that all around the project in terms of qualification of affordability, or does that individual, is that person an employee with a salary and needs some affordability to support it, or is the commercial of that project totally around the project itself and nothing outside of that?
The lender asked for proof of income. This client's a property professional. They've actually got 6 different property businesses that do various different things. This is what they do day in, day out. And between me and you, their earnings aren't that great on paper, which is how a lot of people do it. So this really wasn't down to income. Commercial lenders, particularly on the bridging side, they're not that worried about what's going on in the background. We still supplied them with an A&L, so they were comfortable with the client's overall wealth proposition. But to be honest with you, the experience that they've got and the quality of the figures in the transaction as a whole is what sort of shone through on this one. The client's individual income circumstances were not top of the agenda with this lender.
That's great. And just as a general thing, do you think income from property alone is affecting borrowing on projects either like this or smaller residential type refurb, refinance type projects? Just because obviously affordability is important, but it seems that people I know are only getting their income from property are finding it a little bit harder. What's your view on that?
This kind of stuff, I don't think that just having income from property alone is going to cause you too many problems. Where it will cause you issues, do you know the biggest problem that it will cause you is when you come to refinance your own home, because traditional residential lenders, some of which I mentioned in the presentation there, the TSBs and Barclays of this world, if you turn around to them and said, I just get rental income, they'll probably laugh you out the door. On the buy-to-let mortgage side, basically the more mainstream you get, the more likely you are that you've got to have some other type of income. If you went to, the BM Solutions of this world or the Mortgage Works of this world, they're going to be a lot more sceptical than if you went to the Kent Alliances and the Interbays or the lending desks of this world. So there's always a sliding scale with this kind of stuff. And like anything, Andy, to be honest with you, when it comes to funding, it sounds horrible to say it, you can very rarely have your cake and eat it. If there are things that aren't normal, it means that there are going to be lending options that will just not be available to you. So you just got to be realistic with what lending options will be available to you. Anything you add into the equation, which is a bit out of the norm, a bit unique, chances are that's going to take some lending options out of the pile, basically.
That's great. Thank you for that, Sam.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Any other questions for Sam?
Yeah, this is just a quick one. Yeah, hi, how you doing, Sam?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks. So that the final product that the person ended up with, is it a long-term bridge or?
No, that's a commercial term mortgage. That was actually a 15-year term.
Okay.
It was
changes every so often, or is it?
Yeah, it was oh God, you put me on the spot now. It was definitely a fixed rate. It was either 2 or 5 year fixed rate, and I must admit off the top of my head, I can't remember now. But obviously, like any mortgage, we would just review it at that time. And chances are, the thing is with commercial lenders, a lot of the time is if you've got a commercial term, unless there is a real change in circumstances, either the clients themselves or we tend to sort of essentially product transfer and just go on to whatever the fixed rate is that lender's offering, unless there is something substantially better elsewhere, because usually the fees kill it. So unlike with a buy-to-let mortgage where you might pay $999 as a fee or something, which you can add onto a loan. If you're looking at figures like that, and every time you refinance every 2 to 5 years, you've got to add 2% of the loan amount on, it tends to be quite costly. So we take that into consideration, and a lot of the time doing a product transfer is what we would do, and then potentially extend the full term as well. So, after the 5 years, there'll be 10 remaining, and we might then refinance product transfer onto another 5 year, but then push the term up to 15 again, depending on the age of the borrower. But yeah, in short, that was a commercial mortgage. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Any last questions for Sam before I hit him with my own?
Oh God, I've got to prep myself to warm up.
So my question, Sam, is it was interesting what you were talking about, the bounce back loans in terms of traditional buy-to-let, not interested at all, looking for sources, but the bridging community being much more comfortable. The obvious thing is it's going to cause a problem when you then come off the bridge and want to go on to the buy-to-let, because won't the bridger be interested in the source of funds for the original loan? So aren't you just building problems for the future?
Do you know what? It's a really good question, Chris, because you would think so. Now, look, there's no guarantees of anything in this game, but what we find is, and this is where we'll speak to a lot of clients that might buy properties in cash and then they need to refinance, and they always get a bit stressed out when I turn around to them and I say, right, so when we refinance, because you bought cash, this lender will need to see the origin of the funds that we used to purchase this property originally. That's when you're buying cash. Now, if you're buying using a bridge, the lender ordinarily will essentially trust that the bridging lender has done their due diligence during the purchase, and they tend not to do any further due diligence. They certainly don't ask us. I can't remember the last time when we refinanced off of a bridge where a lender asked us to show origin of the original deposit funds. Now, some might say, is that deceiving the lender because we know where they've come and we should be open and honest with that? That's a bit of a grey area for me. In my opinion, if the lender asks for something, you're open and honest with them. If they don't ask for something, they're not interested. So, I wouldn't tell them what my inside leg measurement was because they haven't asked for it. So me not telling them what it is not me deceiving them. Do you see what I mean? So that probably wasn't the best example in the world, but you understand the concept of it. The only way I do. It may cause problems is if in legals it comes up in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, on the whole, Chris, I've not seen the problem thus far, and I've not seen a problem previously where that's come up. So I don't envisage a problem, touch wood, but I don't want to give any guarantees.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, obviously, the bounce back loans is probably even the early ones. Well, they might be getting to the point that they're 6 months old. But yeah, so that was interesting. I've got loads of other questions, but I'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Sam, and thanks for swapping onto the laptop. That made a big difference.
Normal service will resume next time with the microphone. So it's just me being an idiot and forgetting it when I came down on the train this morning.
Okay, we forgive you. Don't worry. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.